day, everyone. Welcome to Clean Green Alliance, a podcast by STEM students of Bawang Technical Integrated High School. I'm Jared Velasquez.
And I'm David Villian. Together, we would like to invite you to join us in our conversation about climate change.
That's right. We will have a set of questions that will be answered by our invited special guest.
So, before we start, let me introduce our beautiful guest. She is a graduate of Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in Social Studies, and also a graduate of Masters in Education major, also in Social Studies. Currently teaching at Batangas State University, the Engineering University as a Lecturer 1 under Architecture Department. Let me introduce Miss Anne Faith Abarquez.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for the
Hello.
invitation.
Yeah. Hello, Miss Anne. So, how's your Christmas?
Well, it's great. I'm with my loving partner and his family, and I enjoy Christmas. We enjoy Christmas together.
That
It
sounds
seems
great.
good. Yeah. How about you, brother? How's your Christmas?
Oh yeah, mine went very good as well. It was fantastic. I had a lot of fun. I ate a lot of food. I also spent my Christmas with my loving partner and with my family. How about you, man?
Okay. Uh, yeah. Same as you. We're eating together with my family. Yeah. Enjoying a simple Christmas. So, guys, I feel a bit nervous since this is the first time I take a podcast, and I don't even have any experience doing this.
So don't worry, bro. Me too. I may sound nervous as well.
Okay, so before anything else, let's just start the main event of our podcast. Okay, so climate change refers to a change in the typical weather for a region, such as high and low temperature and amount of rainfall over a long period of time.
That's right. And Miss Anne, we know that you are very familiar with climate change and how this concerning issue is affecting the world tremendously. So, how do you think climate change affect different regions of the world differently?
For me, climate change affect differently or different regions of world differently. In some areas, we can see greater warming than others, while some other regions may also feel a greater rainfall, and others may experience more frequent droughts. People and ecosystem are being impacted by, we can say, regional variation in temperature and precipitation.
Yeah, so I completely agree with you. We can also see, evidence of how climate change affects the world really. If we can compare the ice sheets and the icebergs in the Antarctica, like in the 1800s, compare now, it is much more, it is less actually, much more, what do you call that? Thinner. Like the ice sheets and then the icebergs are much smaller than in the 1800s. So, and with that iceberg, melting, it actually causes,
The rising of the sea level.
yeah, the sea levels. It causes it to rise, and causes a lot of problems in our coast areas.
Yeah. So I think you two both correct, and I agree with that. So next up, we have how do human activities contribute to climate change?
For me, human activities that contribute to climate change through using the aerosol spray. We also use refrigerators that has chemicals in it that can give or destroy the ozone layer. Also the aircon. And also we always burn the plastic or the trashes around us, which may harm the mother nature. And also we have this combustion engine.
Actually, based on my own research, human activities contribute to climate change by causing changes in Earth's atmosphere in the amount of greenhouse gases. Like the largest known contribution comes from burning of fossil fuel, which releases carbon dioxide gas to the atmosphere. Uh, you know, Greenhouse gases and aerosols affect climate change by altering incoming solar radiation and not going infrared thermal radiations that are part of Earth's energy balance.
Yeah. So, Miss Anne, what do you think are the consequences of climate change, both in the short term and long term?
So let's talk about first in the short term. I can say that El Nino and La Nina cause drastic shifts in the climate for a year or two. As warming also causes increased evaporation, we have heavy rainfalls. We also have experience or other countries experience snowfalls and also floods, cyclones, and more. And when we talk about on the long term, there will be less sea ice and more permafrost thawing, more heat waves and heavier precipitation. We also have less water supplies in semi-arid areas. And it says in the news that the scientists' prediction of long-term implication of climate change drastically.
Yeah, it's true because climate change is a long term process, and it has have a range of impacts on Earth's climate, and it can be really concerning because a lot of people are now suffering from it, especially in a rise of temperature and dozens of other issues, and overall it's just very a concerning thing, and we need to make action.
Well, I think that's right. I agree with that. So moving on to the next one, what steps can individual and communities take to mitigate the effects of climate change?
To answer that, as an individual using social media, I can share my knowledge about the effects of climate change and the steps that we can do as a citizen. Next is that as a social studies teacher, what I can contribute to mitigate the effects of climate change is that first we can I can inculcate the eco-friendly activity. For example, turning waste into an output or recycling things to lessen the trash. And lastly, we or I can join the barangay project to help our community in the clean and green project. You have coastal cleanup project. You have tree planting project and many more. So it will benefit our mother nature.
Yeah, I agree with that. Actually, there are many ways to fight the climate crisis. Like you can do making your voice heard by those power, eating less meat in diary, um, cut back on flying, leaving the car at home, reduce your energy use and bills, respect and protect green spaces, invest your money responsibly, and last of which is this important one, cut consumption and waste.
So, Miss Anne, with the climate change issue, we know that we're aware that a bunch of government and organizations are working to fight against this um, issue. So, how do you think different governments and international organizations respond to and address climate change?
I think the different governments or the international government respond to the to address the climate change is through regulatory measures and I think collaboration programs. We can say EPA or what we call, Environmental Protection Agency. They collaborate with the industry and other parties. They minimize the greenhouse gas emission. I think they also employs a variety of initiatives inside the organization to lower greenhouse gas emission, to improve energy efficiency, and they also have this to lessen the carbon footprint. And
Yeah.
as for the local government,
Mhm.
they combat climate change by offering resilient urban infrastructure. They also focus on the energy, the transportation, sanitation services that are low carbon. Yeah.
So with our current government in the Philippines, like there has been a huge amount of investment coming in from solar energy companies, and I think that's the effort that our government is making. Making an effort to fight against climate change. We can see that the Marcos administration is really pushing the solar panels, the solar energy, and I think it's a great thing. Miss Anne, what do you think? What do you think about uh, the Philippines government that is doing about climate change? Do you think they're doing
I
a
think
great job?
I think they have an effort when it comes to this Environmental Protection Act. It says in the law we have a lot of examples. We have Clean Air Act of 1999. We have Ecological Solid Waste Management Act. We have Clean Water Act, and the last one is Environmental Awareness and Education Act of 2009. So they already inculcate in the law about this Environment Protection Act. That's why we Filipinos must have an initiative to go under that
Mm,
law, follow the law. Yeah.
yeah, wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that, Miss Anne. So you two guys are correct. I appreciate how you handle that question. So next up, we have a question. How does climate change intersect with other social and environmental issues, such as inequality and biodiversity loss?
Hmm. I think climate change is a complex and multifaceted issue that intersects with many other social and environmental issues. So, one way in which climate change intersects with inequality is that the impacts of climate change often disproportionately affected marginalized and vulnerable communities. We can say that these communities may have less as access to resources and infrastructure that can help them adapt to the impacts of climate change, such as heat waves, we have floods, and the sea level rise. So as a result, they may be more vulnerable to the negative effects of climate change. They will have these illnesses, displacement, and the loss of livelihood. And when we talk about the biodiversity lost, so as it is, or it can alter the condition that may species depend on for survival. So to clearly understand it, I have the example here. The rising temperatures and the changing precipitation patterns. It can lead to the alter of distribution and abundance of species. It can
Mm.
also have the result to shift in ecosystem and potentially lead to the extinction of species. That is not good.
There are some following questions, so let me just answer it. So here's the question one. How are climate change or inequality linked? So basically, one of the consequences of climate change is increased flooding. Evidence shown that inequality often compels the disadvantaged group to live in areas that are more prone to flooding. This increases their exposure to flooding caused by climate change. So another one, how does climate change lead to loss of biodiversity? As what you have said, climate change have altered marines, terrestrials, and freshwater ecosystem around the world. It has caused the loss of local species, increased diseases, and driven mass mortality of plants and animals, resulting in the first climate-driven extinctions.
Miss Anne, we are aware of the carbon emission that we are producing every day around the world is massive, is tremendous amount of carbon dioxide, and we are aware that it is harming our ozone layer. So, how can we ensure a just and equitable transition to a low carbon future?
First, we can advise on how to detect the decreased carbon emission and the financial risk associated with climate change. Next one is to we can assist in the closure, sanitation, and regeneration of aging fossil fuel related asset as a low carbon transition gain traction. And the last one is to have a new infrastructure for low carbon economy. We can Say the example are such as renewable energy, we have electrical networks, we have LNG or the liquefied natural gas, we have hydrogen and carbon capture, utilization and storage, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So, Miss Anne, if it's okay for me to ask you a question, do you know perhaps a electric vehicle? Like, do you know what that is?
Yes,
Yeah, are you aware?
yes.
So yeah, actually, internationally, in the West side, people already started making an effort on contributing to a low carbon future by making or producing electrical vehicle, like for example Tesla. And we can see that a lot of people are actually liking this car, liking this company because it really promotes the low carbon advocacy, and they're basically saying that we are producing massive amount of carbon dioxide every day by from just combustion engines, from just normal automotive vehicle. And yeah, I completely agree with you that with things that you've said, like determining what causes this carbon dioxide emission is very important. And we can just what we can do is just make an effort, really, is to by simply doing the things that by simply doing using eco-friendly uh, materials, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so before the next question, I agree with you, David. When I hear the word Tesla, actually it gives me goosebumps since it's more on high tech and the design is very cool. So I agree with you. So moving on to the next question, what role do different economic systems play in contributing to or addressing climate change?
I must say that we have the role. It first we have the capitalism, next is socialism, and the third one and the last one is mixed economy. When we're talking about the capitalism, it is based on the principle of the market economy, or we can say the private property. It has contributed to climate change through the pursuit of profit and the reliance of fossil fuel as an energy source. While in socialism, it is based on the principle of public ownership of the means of production. We can also say that it can potentially address climate change through the central planning of resources and prioritization of collective needs over individual profit. However, I can say that socialist systems have historically struggled with environmental issues because they do lack of initiatives like us for individual conservation and the prioritization of economic growth over environmental protection. The last one is the mixed economy. This role combines the element of both the two. The first two, which are capitalism and socialism. It can be able to address climate change through the use of regulatory measures and, of course, the incentives of the encouragement to the transition for the clean energy and adoption of sustainable practices. This includes, yeah, the carbon pricing, subsidies for renewable energy, and the last one is regulation for reduced emissions.
Um, yeah, so I think I have nothing to say since Miss Anne explained and answered very well the question. So
Yeah. So, Miss Anne, do you think that the people truly understands the essence of climate change issue? You being as a social study teacher, I'm aware that you tackle this topic a lot, especially with your students. But
Yes.
do you truly think that they understand what the importance of climate change, or the people understand it truly?
Well, it depends. If we're
Mm.
talking about students, maybe they have minimal amount of knowledge about this issue, which is the climate change. But when we're talking about the people, ordinary people that doesn't have education, I think those people doesn't truly understand the essence of climate change because they are still harming the mother nature. They're still doing irresponsible activities. They're still throwing garbage into the sea. They're still throwing it into the water form, the land forms, and etc. And they use different products with bad chemicals like CFC. So I think we should need to move. We should have we should spread awareness through social media. We should tell them to join the movement about the the climate change issue.
Mm.
So that they can understand or they will understand the result of their wrongdoing. And also the goal is that to encourage others to be better, to change their wrongdoings into
Mm.
a eco-friendly activities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? There's one thing that triggers me the most, especially in the Philippines. Like the problem in the Philippines is that we lack discipline. One of the reasons why we are struggling in a lot of factors is because we lack discipline, especially in the way of throwing garbages, trash, right? Like if you go in the Philippines, you will see trash everywhere, even in sidewalks, or maybe you will see a trash bin over there, but you'll see trash on the street. Like it triggers me how people don't have that discipline. Like, why do you want to throw trash like that? And as what you've said, yeah, people don't truly understand the essence of climate change because if they're still doing irresponsible things that contributes obviously to climate change. And what can I say? It is what we already said is to spread awareness to this particular issue. Yeah.
And may I add something about
Mm-hmm.
place in the Philippines, which is Davao. You
Davao.
know what? I can share that Davao is the cleanest city in the Philippines. Why? Because they give knowledge to the citizen there,
Mm.
and also they give uh, some reminders.
Yeah,
There's
reminders.
a lot of reminders and how they handle the law there. Yeah.
Like one of the mayors in Davao, right, was President Duterte, right? Is that
Boy,
right?
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
the boy.
Obviously, Davao would be the cleanest city because, well, it's President Duterte is very strict, very remindful of the actions that his people do. Yeah. What do you think about this, Jared? Like, what do you think about the Philippines being undisciplined?
Recently, I've noticed that only few who cares about our climate, like others, having a lack of knowledge when it comes to climate change. When you tell them what is climate change, like they cannot answer it directly. So for me, in order for us to address this problem, we must give action like spreading awareness, giving such informations that people may understand, so that we can. What I'm saying is that the city in Davao,
Mm.
here in Batangas, we can copy what Davao do, so that we can discipline people everywhere. So that okay. So here's the question. Last question, Miss Khan. How can we effectively communicate the importance and urgency of addressing climate change to a wider audience?
So I think let's first start with activating the youth. Yeah, because the youth are the hope for tomorrow. So
Mm.
International Youth Climate Movement, we can give them as a model. They have this movement and they it is extremely effective, and actions and holding leadership. they are responsible, and they work better together.
Mhm.
So if we start with the young ones, we educate the young ones, we include in education the essence of climate change, how to face it, how to lessen it, and to have an organization with young people, with the youth. We can highlight the climate change, our concerns for the future generations. And I think now is the time to act since it is hitting hard.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, in order for us to communicate effectively, we can communicate by using appropriate languages, metaphor, and analogy so that the audience can understand clearly what's the message all about. Another one, we can combine it with narrative storytelling. In that case, we can get the attention of the audience. And last off, we must balance with specific information, more on facts, not just giving some opinions. And that's all we have deliver through trusted messenger in group settings. So
Mm.
I think that's it. So we accomplished the 10 questions. Congratulations, guys. So
Congratulations.
yeah, we can now celebrate. So I think this will be the end of our podcast episode one. So thank you very much for listening and joining our conversation.
Yeah, so obviously we have to thank our special guest, Miss Anne Faith Abarcas. We
Yeah,
truly, we
thank you,
truly,
Miss Ad.
yeah, we truly appreciate your time coming in here, especially in the middle of the holidays. Obviously, it's going to
Yeah.
be New Year soon, and we appreciate your time, really.
Okay, you're welcome, and God bless your podcast. That is a great step to help others to be knowledgeable.
Yeah, is one of is one way we're doing to promote the advocacy about this climate change, and you can see more of our content at our Facebook page. If you go to
Yeah.
search up facebook.com/cleangreen13, that is our Facebook page where we post quotes of the day about climate change. We will also post memes. Yes, memes about climate change and how we can, fight against climate change and a bunch more stuff incoming. So yeah,
Okay.
Okay, so that's it. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, guys.
yeah. Thank you guys for
Have a blessed
listening.
night,
Thank you so
everyone. Okay,
much.
bye bye.